An 18-year-old Tibetan girl heard for the first time that the buildings in Shanghai could be over 100 floors high.
就是我是说这样一楼一楼的。
对啊。
100多。
对啊。
哇，不可能吧？
真的。
那怎么做出来的？
The girl's name was Simu. Her daily job was to hold a little lamb and take photos with tourists, earning 5 yuan each time. Because her Mandarin was not fluent or standard, and because of her shy and introverted personality, even if she squatted there from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day, she could only earn a little over 10 yuan a day. This kind of life, she thought, was something she could see the end of at a glance. Until one day, Simu, as usual, sat on a stone pier waiting for tourists, when she unexpectedly entered the lens of Japanese director Ryo Takeuchi. They were there filming a documentary. The host, Don, walked through the scenic gate. Simu turned her head by chance, casually took off her mask, and her face immediately lit up the camera. Two people from completely different worlds were thus connected by fate. After learning that she hadn't made any money that day, the production crew took turns taking photos with her, so she finally earned 30 yuan. Feeling the kindness of the crew and of Don, the once shy Simu took the initiative to invite them to her home as guests. As soon as they stepped inside, Don was amazed by the structure and decoration of her home. The wide and spacious stilted house, the elegant murals, and every detail reflected the unique characteristics of Tibetan Buddhist culture. In awe, Simu's family warmly hosted the entire film crew. Although Simu's mother and aunt couldn't speak Mandarin, they sat beside them with cheerful smiles, listening happily. It was also there that Don tasted his first sip of butter tea in his life. Before dinner, Don offered to help cut the frozen meat, but after struggling for a long time, he still couldn't cut it.
哎呦我天哪，这么硬怎么？
还是我来吧。
你可以吗？
我可以。
Simu took the knife and easily finished it with just a couple of chops.
哦，是耶。
At dinner time, everyone ate traditional Tibetan cured meat called peepa meat, and drank the special butter tea. They chatted about everyday things without any barriers, just like long-lost friends reunited. The next morning, Simu took Don to the Songsanlin monastery to pray and burn incense, and later met one of her childhood friends. The two of them shared stories of Tibetan Buddhist culture with Don, while he told them about the outside world. The canola flowers swaying in the fields were like their silent audience, quietly listening to the stories of two different worlds.
上海到江苏离了4个小时，不是吧？4个小时就能到？
对啊。
哈哈。
上海跟拉萨，你比较想去哪？
想去上海。
Watching a plane roar through the sky, Simu couldn't help but ask.
那飞机里面没坐多少个人呀？
大飞机差不多快到400吨。
不是吧？
真的？
那天上是不是有那个飞机的路啊？
这个怎么说呢？
Perhaps it was Simu's innocence that touched Don, so he suddenly came up with an idea. He wanted to take Simu to Shanghai. After getting approval from the production team, he invited her directly.
要不要跟我们去上海？
不去。
为什么不去？你不想去吗？
不想去。我就是挺不相信的。
Although her words were full of refusal, on the way home along the field path, Don could still see Simu's yearning for the outside world. After the production team invited her again and again, Simu finally changed her mind. But when they told her family about this decision, her mother agreed, while her uncles strongly objected.
一つの、もし、図があるところなら、いくらでも、上海がそういうところじゃないですから、まあ、行かなくてもいいという、まあ、それは考えも、まあ。
Unexpectedly, the crew's good intentions made Simu feel disappointed and helpless. Just last month, her parents had arranged her marriage, forcing her to marry a boy from a neighboring village whom she had never met. Having never been exposed to open-minded ideas, she also believed that a girl shouldn't appear in public before marriage. Originally, everyone thought that their story would end there. But 1 month later, something unexpected happened. Simu and her parents appeared at the Shanghai airport in traditional festive clothes. Don was overjoyed and ran to greet them.
真的来了，没事吧？
It turned out that after her mother's persistent persuasion, Simu's uncle finally agreed to their trip to Shanghai. Before this, the farthest place Simu had ever been was a nearby village just a few dozen kilometers away. Now she had crossed 6,300 kilometers to reach Shanghai. It was an act of courage she had never imagined. Early the next morning, Don appeared before Simu, dressed smartly and full of energy. He wanted to let Simu experience as much as possible of the world beyond Shangri-La. So he took her on her very first subway ride. Watching the crowds of commuters rushing in and out of the train, Simu's eyes were full of wonder and awe. She couldn't stop exploring this new and exciting world with her curious gaze. As soon as they stepped out of the subway, Don reminded her to look up.
哇，我不会吧！我的妈呀！
The 100-story skyscraper stood tall before her eyes, and Simu was overwhelmed with excitement. Then they took the sightseeing elevator. As they watched the lights flash inside the elevator, Don looked calm and composed, while Simu's face was full of curiosity and anticipation. When the elevator reached the 100th floor, Don noticed her nervousness and gently asked her to close her eyes. Then he led her to the window.
哇，很累吧？太漂亮了！
This was a view she had never seen in all of her 18 years of life. It was nothing like Shangri-La. After that, they went to the Huangpu River to take a sightseeing cruise and enjoy the night view. On the boat, Don acted like her personal tour guide, patiently answering all her questions. Listening to Simu's endless exclamations, he seemed to see his younger self once again. As a half-Chinese, half-Japanese child, Don had moved from a rural village in Heilongjiang to a Japanese city when he was 9. Back then, skyscrapers and automatic taxi doors had filled him with amazement. The reason he suddenly decided to invite Simu to Shanghai was because he wanted her to see a broader world, just like he once did. Clearly, Simu was lucky. At the most beautiful age of 18, she met someone who would change her life forever. After this trip to Shanghai, Simu's outlook changed. At first, she didn't even know what a dream was, but now she had begun to clearly plan her own future. 3 months later, she sent a thank you letter to the production team, saying,
そこには民宿を開きたいという夢が書かれていた。
10 years later, director Ryo Takeuchi returned to Shangri-La to film another documentary. The same scenic gate, the same mountains and rivers. But what had become of Simu now? With that question in mind, the crew followed their memories back to her old village.
你好，你好，你好。我现在在找人，你认识次母吗？我现在找朋友，他是我的朋友。次母。
就他家了。
就这。啊，是吗？酒店？
他家开酒店的。
Ryo Takeuchi froze for a moment, remembering that 10 years ago, Simu had written in her letter that her dream was to open a guesthouse. Now, it seemed that her dream had come true. Following the direction pointed out, they soon saw a striking signboard reading Renqing Simu Beautiful Garden. With curiosity and anticipation, they entered the hotel, and before they could think much, a familiar figure ran toward them. Simu warmly gave Ryo Takeuchi and the cameraman brother Yong a big hug. Compared with their first meeting 10 years ago, the shy girl had completely changed. Though there were now a few fine lines at the corners of her eyes, she was still beautiful, lively, sincere, and full of sunshine. She had become confident and mature.
这次东东就没有过来是吧？
对。
哦，哎，这边请。
他变了。
来这边请。
谁说说话真的变了？
说话变了，说话变了。
真的吗？
真的，以前不敢说话，现在说话来。
After the warm greetings, Simu eagerly showed them around her hotel. It turned out that after returning from Shanghai, she had been inspired to open a guesthouse of her own. Over the next 10 years, she worked at various inns, learning everything about how to run and manage one. Finally, last year, she borrowed several million yuan from relatives and banks and managed to open her hotel. When the crew learned that all the decorations in the rooms were designed by Simu herself, they were amazed.
以前什么地都
对呀，
这么高科技的东西有啊！以前就是都是这样烧这个木嘛，
现在变成了装饰。现在
我自己想出来了。
挺好的。
Simu also told the director that it was because of that trip to Shanghai 10 years ago that she first discovered that rooms could have private bathrooms and floor heating. She incorporated all those ideas into her own hotel. Because her hotel preserved the local Tibetan culture while blending in many modern urban features, it had become very popular in Shangri-La. Looking at the confident and capable hotel owner before them, everyone couldn't help but marvel at how time had changed her. While they were talking, Simu's mother, upon hearing that old friends had come to visit, rushed upstairs in excitement. But before she could even speak, she was already wiping tears from her eyes.
我妈就是太感动了，她说，她就是这一生里面嘛，就玩过最开心的一次，就是你们在我们一家一起去的时候，对，她就说她永远都忘不了那个，就特别感谢你们。
Hearing this, the director couldn't help but shed tears. It turned out that this bond, which had lasted across 10 years, still held such deep and beautiful meaning in both of their hearts. When Simu once again picked up a little lamb and faced the camera, just like she had at 18, the director was overwhelmed with emotion. 10 years ago, she was the only one running the Photo with Lamb project here. 10 years later, this place now offered horseback riding, Tibetan costume rentals, and traditional cultural experiences. 10 years ago, her uncle had fiercely opposed her trip to Shanghai. 10 years later, he had become the head of the local tourist attraction and even said, "Don't just go to Shanghai, I wouldn't mind if Simu traveled abroad." 10 years ago, Simu could only obey her parents' wishes and marry a boy from a nearby village whom she had never met. 10 years later, her younger sister had gone to university and could now freely choose whom to love. Even if she stayed single at 30, their parents wouldn't mind. 10 years ago, Simu had no idea what she wanted for the future.
你现在的梦想是什么？
我没有什么梦想。
10 years later, however, she already had a clear plan.
我的目标的话，肯定是有设计感更强的民宿。
10 years ago, Shanghai and Shangri-La felt like two completely different worlds existing in parallel. 10 years later, with the development of the internet, the lifestyles and ideas from all over China had become closely connected. Over this decade, China's development has been like racing along a highway, fast, steady, and full of energy. Time may be ruthless, but people are not. The hard-working, simple, and hospitable spirit of the Chinese people has never changed. During dinner, to welcome their special guests, Simu's family brought out the most grand Tibetan-style hot pot. They ate traditional Tibetan fragrant pork and wild vegetables harvested from an altitude of over 5,000 meters. While chatting, the director casually mentioned a quarrel he had with the cameraman Brother Yong 10 years ago. Back then, Brother Yong had disagreed with Simu's trip to Shanghai.
我就担心你从这个地方去到这么远的地方，上海是中国最发达的城市，花花世界，是一个特别繁华的地方。我担心你会去了以后，会对你的思想或者是你的一个对世界的认识产生太大的变化。你会不会就觉得自己的家乡没意思了，不喜欢在自己的家乡待着了？
Fortunately, the outcome was the exact opposite. After witnessing the prosperity of the big city, Simu grew to love her hometown even more. She was filled with motivation to make it as beautiful and vibrant as the city she had seen. She combined her newfound vision into her hotel design. Even though she couldn't change fate, she learned to crown her own life through effort. Now, Simu is very content with her life. She has not only fulfilled her original dream but also has 2 adorable sons. Although her husband works away from home for long periods, and she manages everything alone, she never complains. One morning, Simu deliberately put on the same traditional Tibetan dress she wore 10 years ago. Together with the crew, she went back to the corner where she and Don Don had first met. As she looked at the familiar scenery, she suddenly couldn't hide her emotions.
哎呀，在这里就想起了全是东东哥。
他不记得我们。
Sensing Simu's subtle emotions, the director immediately took out his phone and made a video call to Don Don, who was now living in Japan. Simu looked nervous and uneasy, but the call didn't go through. Things change, time passes, and tears fell before words could even form. Thinking about it, Simu turned around, wiping her eyes over and over. Perhaps the director didn't want to leave her with any regrets before they departed, so he decided to try calling Don Don again. This time, the call finally connected.
Hello， 你记得我吗？对啊，对呀。
哇，这是以前那个院吗？
是的，是的，是的，以前那个院。
好漂亮。
对他的民宿特别漂亮。激动了。
能想到的人，大家都可以想到，但是实际上能做到的人很少的，我觉得很厉害，佩服佩服。
Indeed, this world scatters opportunities all around us. Many people let them slip by quietly, but Simu chose to grasp them firmly, and with courage and perseverance, she climbed upward. Thus, she became one of life's lucky survivors, and in the end, she was able to see the light above. Just like her, countless people across China, of every region and ethnicity, have also learned to seize opportunities and strive forward. Nourished continuously like the flowing water of the Yangtze River, they have grown strong and resilient. 10 years ago, the people along the Yangtze struggled to make a living yet remained poor. 10 years later, they're using drones to sow seeds and spray crops, and some can even buy a house and a car outright in the county town. In just 10 years, they have lifted themselves from poverty, improved their lives, and embraced happiness. The progress of an era and the development of a nation never happen overnight. Likewise, the transformation of a person's destiny and the evolution of their times never move in just one direction. Pure-hearted Simu is indeed fortunate. A chance encounter of kindness 10 years ago opened up infinite possibilities in her small world, allowing her to find purpose in what was once a fixed path, and ultimately, to rewrite her own destiny. Do you think if not for that trip to Shanghai years ago, Simu's life would still be the same? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's talk about it together. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.